We are calling to order the May 5th, or May 6th, 2025 meeting of the Beacon City School District Board of Education. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Vicky, can you call the roll? Here. Excused? Excused? Excused?
Here.
Here.
Excused?
Here.
Here. Matt, can you review the fire exits?
Exits are in the back of the LGI.
Okay, let's stand up again for a moment of silence for Roderick LaValle. I hope I'm saying that right. He was a lifelong educator focused on science, and he retired from the Beacon City School District. Thank you. Okay. Next, we have open to the public. Does anybody have a public comment they would like to make? Seeing none, we will move on to the workshop. Tonight is the budget hearing. Okay. Okay, can I get a motion to open the budget hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 5-0. Is that? Thank you.
Good? Yep, we're good. Okay. Okay, so we are excited to talk about the budget tonight. So I just want to talk about how a budget hearing is slightly different than our board presentation. So there's some required information that's a little bit later in the presentation that Anne Marie will go over. And also to people who are here for the public hearing, you can ask questions and things like that. So if you want to wait to the end, or if you want to just like raise your hand, I'm looking at you, because you're not to pick on you, but it's not like a typical sort of board meeting. So and then once we're done, the public hearing closes and we go back to a normal meeting. So board, some of the slides you'll see tonight are ones you've seen a few times in the last month or so. I'm not going to spend an enormous amount of time on those. And then we have not new information, but just some information that either you requested at the last meeting or that the state requires that we go over tonight. And so I'll do the first part, and Anne Marie will do a bulk of the presentation tonight too. So again, just a reminder, I say this at the beginning of every single budget talk in here that I've done probably for the last 8 years, is that the budget really reflects what we value here in the district. And so we try to organize our actions and our thinking around academic excellence and community and communication, culture of care, and facilities and fiscal sustainability. So there's a lot of actions underneath those things represented in sort of the budget over time. But we certainly have tried to really organize our thinking and our work in this way. I think we made a little change to this because, we had curriculum at the 2021. Curriculum is really something we have done every year. But I think this is a great graphic because it represents some of the additions to the budget over time, really over the last 8 years. And so, again, just to kind of quickly go through this, we really started 7 years ago a pretty big class size reduction initiative in the district, focused at the elementary grades. Our class size average is now between 17 and 18 students in a classroom, which I think is great, and that's one of the best class size averages in Dutchess County. Music, we added 4th grade instrumental music. We first started with a grant, then we took it over in the budget, and this isn't like the only cause of this, but when I was at Guys and Dolls over last weekend, they had in the program, they had a list of all the pit musicians, and they had an asterisk next to each Beacon student who was in the pit, and the number was 26 students that were in the pit. When I started here years ago, not that I'm taking responsibility for this, but when I started here, it was maybe one student in the pit, maybe.
None.
So that I also, the other number that was in my head was when I started 8 years ago, the jazz band encompassed both Roundabout and the high school, and there was 4 kids in it, plus 2 teachers, and now we have a Roundabout jazz band, a high school jazz band, and 3 or 4 ensembles, like, where kids can really do a lot there. I think 4th grade instrumental music has played a role in that for sure. And then the board funding all of these additional music groups, that is part of the budget. Mental health, over time, we've added 2 social workers, an additional guidance counselor to the middle school. Extracurriculars, in 2021, we started to really exponentially grow our clubs and extracurriculars, especially at the elementary and middle school levels. At high school, always had a lot of different club offerings. The thinking with this is that we're really trying to offer opportunities for our students to explore different interests, learn things about themselves that they didn't know before. It also has teachers, exploring some of their outside interests too with kids. It's been a really great addition. And at, I think, all 4 of our elementary schools, we're close to 50% of the students are involved in a club at least at some point during the school year, which is, and before 2021 was about maybe 3%. So that's been a huge growth. Pre-K, really proud of this one, and this we're also very unique in not just Dutchess County, but the region. We've moved to a full-day model. Just like, the state says with their UPK funding, we're not able to offer it at this time for every single interested family, but we're getting close. We're getting close to that. So this has been an initiative that started in a pilot manner, and it's become really popular, and it's been a great use of our resources. And then partnerships, some of those partnerships we've had for a long time, but we've been the last couple of years piloting a new partnership with Compass Arts, which we've been really excited about. And then specifically in this budget this year, summer student workshops at BHS. So one group we're targeting is incoming 9th graders. I think it's a really great idea to bring as many of them in as possible to do like a prepping for high school kind of experience for them. And then the other group that we're offering some summer workshops for our kids who are trying like an AP or GCC class for the first time. So we're excited about that. On the mental health side, we are going to be offering a site-based mental health clinic at RMS. At BHS, we're going to be doing the BRIGHT program, which helps students transition from hospitalization type settings back to school. It also focuses on helping kids with school reluctance. We're adding a half-time speech teacher to help us with IEPs, intervention teachers at the elementary level. Right now, we're just looking at student need and trying to figure out, like sort of who goes where and that. But we'll be working on that probably over the next month. And then professional development, a lot of it is focused on science of reading. Obviously, we have other PD going on as well. Inclusion has been a big area of professional development, along with some other initiatives. But we have a really robust professional development in the budget. And I want to back up and just say a lot of this work, we did a community survey last fall, and we had a huge number of students fill it out. We had a lot of parents fill it out, and we had a lot of staff. It was a really good number of folks this year, and a lot of these ideas came from that in terms of focusing continued PD on reading, more academic support, especially at the elementary level, mental health focus. So we can't, so much comes through in a survey. It's hard in one budget to accomplish it all, but that's why it's fun to look at this. Like over time, we kind of keep adding things. At a few board meetings ago, I said one thing we're really proud of here is that all of these things we've implemented in a way that we haven't had to pull back on. And so that's something that we've been really pleased with. All right. Anne-Marie?
Okay. And I know the board has seen this slide, but I thought it was important to talk about it a little bit more. So our tax levy is generated based on a calculation of the tax cap based on New York state law. So some of the things that are important to Beacon, we are able to raise our levy by the tax base growth factor. Beacon is the highest in Dutchess County, and one of the reasons for that is the amount of new construction that is going on in Beacon, and everyone can kind of see that as they walk around Main Street and the surrounding areas. So that allowed us to raise the levy a little bit more than others. The allowable growth factor is the lesser of the consumer price index, or 2%. And the 2% number is kind of how people look at the tax levy, but that's just a portion of the calculation. And the capital exclusion. So principal and interest less any building aid that you receive gets to be added back to the tax levy as well. In our case this year, we had voted last May for a $49.9 million capital project, which we told the voters that we would have to raise the levy. So this is the start of that. This is adding some debt, some principal and interest payment future to actually pay for that. And capital improvement projects. So these are some of the things that were voted on in the $49.9 million project. More secure school entrances in the 5 school buildings. Glenham had theirs done last year as part of the 2021 capital project. The creation of cooling centers and addition of air conditioning up to 50% of the classrooms. Infrastructure improvements like roofing, upgrades to the baseball and softball fields. Not on this slide, we're also resurfacing the tennis courts at Beacon High School, and some renovations to the Seeger Theater. And I know later on we will talk about it, but we just had a facilities committee meeting right before the meeting with, it was a great meeting, and it talked about timing and how we were going to move forward. So I'm sure we'll get more information about that. So our Beacon budget that we're putting in front of the voters in 2 weeks from tonight is $87,720,000. The budget to budget increase is a 4.61% increase. I thought I'd mention something about the state budget. This is probably the first year in my 20 years here that we have not had a state budget passed before we are asking the voters to vote for the school district. And why is that important? Because we don't really know definitively what our state aid number is. We're using the governor's number. We're hoping that's the most conservative. We might get a little bit more money, but it does not allow us to grow the budget anymore. That is what we have. That's what the board adopted, and that's what we're going to put on the ballot in 2 weeks.
Can I just,
Yes.
if I get a chance to rant about this, I will for a second. So, you know, like Anne-Marie said, we're entering somewhat unprecedented territory here. It's concerning to me because sometimes I feel like there's not even updates coming out about like where things are. But you know, we don't have control over that. The one thing that is also, it's not necessarily budget related, but obviously everyone is aware that the governor's been speaking really clearly about what she's calling a bell-to-bell cell phone ban. So it would be helpful for school districts, not just us, to like get the exact information of the language of that bill. We're obviously preparing for it, you know, behind the scenes, but just, you know, if any of them are listening in Albany, it'd be great to have this wrapped up at some point. But I think just in further advocacy, and I know this is something that we have no control over, this is a hard way to plan, and it's a hard way to present budgets to the public. And I feel like some of the language out of Albany has been almost dismissive of that. And it's just, I think it's an area where there could be maybe a little bit more thought from like the governor's office regarding what school districts, what goes into planning for school districts. Okay, rant over.
Okay. This slide shows what makes up the revenue for the budget. So we talked about local property taxes, so that's the tax levy. The state aid number I just spoke about, that's the governor's estimated amount of state aid. That could go, I'm going to say up, because we have talked about the legislative and the Senate may increase it, but we don't know, so we go with the more conservative estimate. Interest earnings, there's interest and penalties on taxes and pilot payment in lieu of taxes, and uses of reserves and fund balance and some miscellaneous income. So that makes up the $87,720,000 budget number. So one of the requirements is that we present to you the three parts of the budget expenditure: the administrative, the instructional, and the capital. And I can briefly just give you an overview. The administrative is basically what you're thinking of. It's the central office staff, it's the building level administration, it's all of the services, it's all of the salary and staff that work underneath them. You would imagine the instructional part of the budget would be the most, so that is everything that relates to children. So that's the teachers, the teacher aides, the teaching assistants, it's the school psychologists, all the related services. It's the transportation area, anything that has a direct relation to children. And the capital portion is the facilities and operations department and the debt service, the principal and interest payments. So which equal, again, that's the comparison from 24-25 to 25-26 projected. This is just a graphic of how our expenditures break up percentage-wise on and a pie chart to give a little different perspective. And understanding the tax levy. So we had talked about this at prior meetings. Will my school taxes go up next year? The tax levy number is exactly what we calculated. It is at the tax cap. It gets spread over all of the businesses and the residents within the city, within the Beacon City School District. I think some people misunderstand that if there's more building, that you can get more money, but that doesn't work that way. What it does do, though, it does spread the levy over more people, which could be a decrease in people's taxes. And I can get a little bit more, I can explain that a little bit more there. So I also want to say that the budget that you're voting on with the tax cap is at the limit, but we do only need a simple majority. We are not going over the cap. We are at the cap. So we just need 50% plus one to pass the budget. And we had spoken a lot last year in May about the purchase of the EV buses. So one of the things I want to talk about is there is no bus proposition on the ballot this year. And why is that? We're still awaiting the EV buses. They hopefully will come August or September is what we were told. We did get a grant from New York State that will assist us in paying for the 2 EV buses and 2 chargers that we will need to actually install them in the bus garage. Those 2 buses can be used and the chargers installed without doing any major upgrades to the bus garage or the actual electric coming into the bus garage. So we're very excited about them coming. We also, last year on the proposition, asked the voters to vote for 372 passenger buses. They have not arrived. So we haven't even been able to use them. So we, between those 5 buses, that is plenty for us to kind of work into our fleet. And so we decided not to do a bus proposition this year and just use the transportation equipment that we have or that we're getting. And at our last meeting, there was some discussion about the federal funds. So we do receive federal funds for through the Title Fund grants and through special ed, Section 611, 619. So one part, we do get roughly $1.3 million in federal funding. That is separate from the information that we're asking you to vote for. That's separate from the $87 million. It does pay for reading teachers, academic intervention services, special education teachers, and professional development. If these funds were to disappear, this amount would then have to be incorporated into the general fund budget.
And just to be clear, this is stating the obvious, that is not all of our special ed teachers covered by federal. It's just a small amount.
It's a small portion.
But just to be clear, it does cover all of our reading teachers currently.
Most of them.
Most of them.
Most of them. The title funds have progressively decreased over the years, so they used to cover 100%. So, yes. So this is uncertainty. We're not, we have no information that we're not getting this money, but it would be important to let the community and the board know.
I mean, the latest I've seen in the news regarding this is in this, I know the details are still hazy, but in this budget, federal budget bill that's trying to be developed or passed, there is a reduction. I've seen at least in one of the proposals to federal education funding. I think what they're saying right now is that's just to like the overhead of it and not to what states receive, but obviously that would be, we'll see if that's the case.
And contingency budget. So a contingency budget is what happens if we have two budget votes and we do not pass the budget. And obviously, that is not a place that we want to be at. If for some reason in 2 weeks the budget fails, then we go back to the Board of Education and we decide what we would have to do as far as a revote is concerned in June. If for some reason in June the budget then fails again, we are forced to go to contingency. And contingency is different every year depending upon, what your budget to budget looks like. But for us this year, it would be a huge decrease if we had to go to contingency. So you're not allowed to raise the levy more than the prior year levy. We would have to cut $2.4 million out of the proposed budget that we're asking you to vote on. So that would be a lot of things, and it would be a lot of things that Matt spoke about in his slide about things that we were able to add going forward.
And others that
And
aren't
other
on,
things.
that aren't on that slide. So we would have to look at everything. And oftentimes when we're looking to make reductions, and we've had to do some of that over the years, we always try to look at things that impact students the least. With that amount, there would be no way we could meet that without impacting students. Zero chance of that. So we would kind of have to do somewhat across the board reductions. So we'd probably have to look at things like class sizes, extracurricular, things that I think we've grown really used to here and beyond that.
Yes. So a little bit about tax rates, and this slide the board has seen before. So where we compare with other school districts in Dutchess County, Beacon is more on the lower side at 11.98%, the tax rate per thousand. And that's been partly because we have grown in Beacon mainly, but a little in Fishkill and Wappingers. And this slide shows assessment increases. So I went back 9 years of increases. And obviously, the blip in 2021 was a little bit of COVID related because it kind of exploded the years after that. So that's how much assessments have been increasing. And I know that at least in the city of Beacon, everyone got their letter of what their new assessments are. So it doesn't mean that the reassessment happens, but the main part of that is all of the new properties that are coming into the tax roll, and that they look at that every year when they send the letters out to the taxpayers. But what we've seen with these assessments is this is above and beyond someone reassessing your home. It's adding to the businesses and the residential properties that are coming onto the tax rolls. So to try to quantify it a little bit, we started having this little conversation at the last meeting, and I wanted to be a little bit clearer. So to estimate what your tax increase would be for the budget and the tax levy that we're proposing, we need to use last year's assessments because we don't receive assessments till the summer. I always consider that to be worst case scenario based on the prior screen because we've seen assessments increase over the last 9 years. So again, I also reevaluated the median since the reassessments went out. So our median home value in Beacon is a little bit higher than it has been. So our median home value is $420,200. So a yearly increase for the budget would be $240 or $20 a month. And I gave a couple other scenarios. If your value of your home is $400,000 or $500,000, what that yearly increase and monthly increase would be. We also wanted to do it based on if we have an increase in assessments, which I've just shown you we've had, right? So I did an average over the last 9 years, and the assessments have risen about 7%. So I, being the accountant, always goes a little conservative, and I said, okay, let's assume we had a 5% increase in assessments across the board. The median home value now's taxes would only go up $31 for the year, or $2.58. So what that means is, excuse me, that means the other properties that are coming onto the tax roll are absorbing some of the tax levy amount that we're setting. It also means that you may have gotten a new letter saying that your assessment went up 5%, but your neighbor might have gotten a letter saying that it went up 10%. So they're going to pay a little bit more than what you're going to pay. So it's kind of difficult to understand, but it does generate the decrease in the tax rate per thousand every single year. So Fishkill, I wanted to kind of do it off the 3 municipalities. So Fishkill median is about $444,500. The yearly increase at worst case scenario would be $253 or $21 a month for a median. And then I showed the value of the 450 and the 500. And then again, if you had an increase of 5%, it would be similar to what the Beacon tax rate, tax increase would be for the year. And Wappingers, the median home value is a little bit less at $387,500, and again, the yearly would be about $1,875 a month. We're at 100% equalization. That's why you're seeing it be similar in nature between Fishkill, Wappingers, and Beacon. And then Wappingers with the 5% increase. And again, it's a lot of information, so I will be putting this presentation up on the website with all the other budget information. And, you know, if anyone who's watching that has a question about it, I'd be more than willing to talk to them about it. And again, this is our comparison. So we were using, again, the median home value was probably a little bit lower than what it currently is, but just to give you an idea of the calculation base. So our median home value, our tax rate is lower than our neighbors. And so a house valued here in Beacon would be paying a tax estimate of a little over $3,000. That same house in those 4 municipalities, that's what the taxes would be. So we are getting a lot of things for not as much money as other people may be paying for the same thing. And these are our 3 candidates that will be on the ballot. So we have 3 candidates running for 3 seats. So next Tuesday, when you come and see the ballot, you will see the budget, and you will see to vote for 3 school board members. Last year was a little confusing, so we wanted to try to keep it simple this year. So it's two things you're kind of voting on. And again, our next step, so we have done the budget adoption. We're in the middle of doing some community outreach. Tonight's the budget hearing, and May 20th, there's the budget vote.
So just in terms of community outreach really quickly, we'll be pushing out information tomorrow. We're doing a Zoom webinar Thursday this week at 6 o'clock. We'll record it. We'll try to keep it fairly short so people can submit questions and spend time on the questions. We'll publicize this, but we're going to do just a public, conversation about the budget at Beacon Rec Center on Monday at 6. Right, Monday at 6. Yes. And then we have, starting tomorrow, we have spring concerts, like going all the way through the next couple of weeks. I'll be at each of those. I'll do a quick, just a quick reminder about the budget vote at the beginning of the concert, and just, if parents have any questions after the show or whatever, I'm happy to answer them. And obviously, all the folks who receive my emails can always just ask me questions about what's going on too, but that's what we have planned right now.
And our budget newsletter, which is on our website right now, it's going to the printer today, and it will be out in the mail, and you should be receiving it over the next couple days. School data sheets we are still working on. That's another project that we will be putting out through social media.
Principals will be sharing those out with their community. The school data sheets. There's one for the high school, one for Roundabout, one for the element, like a universal one for the elementary schools. And it's just going to show some of the things that the budget supports so people can kind of see in a kind of a clear way, like how it impacts each of our schools.
So first, does the board have any questions?
Anybody?
Public?
I don't have a question, but I can tell you why I'm here. Maybe that'd be helpful since I'm the public. Do I have to go up there? I don't have to do that, right? I'm fine to just sit here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Never gone to any public hearing in my whole life. So I'm a parent. My kids go to JVF, and they are in kindergarten and second grade, and they both have IEPs. And we've had one of our first IEP meetings, and it didn't go great. And we have another one this week, and so I just realized a lot of this is attached to what happens with this budget. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
I don't know, is this like on the record kind of a thing?
Well, it's being recorded.
Okay,
So you can say
I'm
who you are.
McIntyre, and my kids are Lorenzo, Laura McIntyre, and Miro, Laura McIntyre.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say that I really, enjoyed is not the right word, but I really appreciated the budget process this year and the way that we sort of slowly built on our understanding of it and built on the public understanding through having these ongoing discussions. And I think that the context that is in this presentation is so valuable, not just to understand how we arrive at the numbers that we arrive at, but what's at stake in this vote. Not just how far we've come, but what we're trying to achieve moving forward. So I really appreciate you guys making it so clear and so clearly connecting it to what we're doing for students in the district. So thank you so much.
One thing we'll do post-budget vote, if it's successful, is I'll start laying out some early thinking about, the future.
Yeah.
I know at the beginning of the process, I talked several times about trying to do a 9-period day at Roundabout.
Right.
It's a huge goal of mine, not just me, but many of us in the district. So we're really targeting that as like a 26, 27 budget initiative. So I wanted to be clear while we're all talking about it, like that is definitely not forgotten. There's a huge interest in it amongst the teaching staff. I think it gives kids more options. I was probably being a little bit overly optimistic, earlier in the winter about our ability to do that, but that's part of it. And so I think what's good for me for this process is we've already established a goal for next year's budget, and that's trying to fund that. So we haven't done that in the past either. We've always been sort of year to year, so that's something that we're going to try to really go after next year.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so can I have a motion for 3.03 to close the budget hearing?
So moved.
Okay, Meredith, second.
Second.
Second by Simra. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 5-0. Okay, thank you, guys. So reviewing the agenda, we have two changes. First is a very minor edit to 11.02 in the consent agenda. That's policy 5620. We just needed to include the word, the abbreviated word for reference at the bottom to indicate the list of references for that policy. And then also on the consent agenda is the addition of 15.06 to approve the rejection of a bid for the boiler replacement at Glenham Elementary. Alrighty, so we are going to have our exec at the end tonight, so I guess we will move on to your superintendent report, Matt?
I was going to talk about some of the budget outreach stuff, which I mentioned up there, so I'll just say it again. We're doing a Zoom webinar Thursday at 6. We have the concert starting tomorrow night. Roundabout kicks it off, and I think Forest Hills Thursday night, and then the following weeks. And then we also will do just kind of open to the community at the Beacon Parks and Rec at Monday at 6. And just to, we won't do like a full slides. We usually just kind of talk folks through it. And the budget webinar, we also will try to go through the slides pretty quickly, and people can submit questions that we'll try to answer.
Great. All right. So moving on to Board of Education comments and committee reports. Elena, do you have anything?
I just want to say this is probably the best budget presentation situation that we've had since I've been on the board. I can understand it better. And I feel like, I don't know if we're doing more because we had to raise the levy, so we wanted to explain why. I think it's something that we should do every time, regardless, showing what different, how we've used a budget and how we've increased and how we've done certain things, and showing what the tax levy is, because a lot of the young folks that are coming up that are having kids that are owning or whatever may not really understand. So to be able to see it, the slides specifically about like what your monthly may look like, because you just hear increase and you're thinking everything else, but the way you break it down, I think was amazing, and I think we should continue to do that. Even if it's a budget where we feel like, okay, it may pass, it's still good, because it educates your community, it educates the students. So thank you for that, but that's it.
Okay, great. I totally agree. Semra?
I would just say that I'd encourage people to come out and vote on this budget on May 20th. I think it's, in my opinion, a very thoughtful budget that is really student-focused and very thoughtful, considering what the ramifications are of budgeting impacts on us that are out of our control. So thank you for that.
Great. Eric?
I echo what Semra and Alina have said. Just a couple of things. We have had a facilities meeting tonight, as Anne Marie had mentioned before. We have a scope of work for our new capital project coming up. We actually have already submitted things for state ed approval, which is awesome. We are looking at the possibility of a presentation on the capital project work possibly in July for the entire board and for the public, which I think the public will really see how quickly things are moving along and the great things that we have in store for the next few years for the district. And the next meeting of our Facilities Committee will be June 2nd at 5:30. I wanted to mention that it is Teacher Appreciation Week, so thanks to our teachers and everyone in our buildings and staff for everything that they do. I wanted to mention that yesterday I went to our first unified basketball game. It's one of the best things I think the school district has ever done. I know other districts are doing it. The baseball team and softball team were there rooting on the unified team. Just a great thing. If you have a chance, it's just a lovely thing to see. I also wanted to mention, I see on the agenda that Jean Sablinski is retiring in August. I've known Jean a long time. I know she's worked in the district. She'll be greatly missed, and we appreciate everything that she's done for the district. And finally, I want to thank the two members running for the board again, and our new member, Catherine, hopefully will stay on for and get voted on. I like to think that we're doing great work here, and I think we have a very cohesive group here as part of the board, and I look forward to working with those three members again. Thank you.
Great. Meredith?
I wanted to make everyone aware there are 5 policies on the agenda for approval. One of them, we're asking you to waive the first read because we need it for our auditors. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a Title I audit.
Title I
Yeah.
audit. The other one is a regulation about for our asthma policy, the extreme heat condition days based on the new state law, and then availability of alternative format instructional materials for students with disabilities. And the last one is student harassment and bullying prevention and intervention. That's on for second read. I also wanted to mention Jean Sablinski. She is one of the first people I worked with when I was working on the foundation when my kids first started school here, and she was always super wonderful and helpful at making things happen. And so, yes, I hope she enjoys her retirement, but she will be missed. And yeah, thank you for a really thoughtful budget process. I feel like One thing that we really didn't recognize is we have the same superintendent making this budget after 8 years, and that's an incredible feat for Beacon. But it also, you realize how important it is for building this budget and keeping, consistent programming. And so, Matt, thanks for taking the risk 8 years ago. Thanks for sticking with us. And thanks everyone for the work they put into it. I feel like it's a budget we can be proud of. We're keeping programs that we've worked really hard to build, and we are continuing to identify the needs of students and addressing them. So I feel really good about it. Thank you very much.
Great. So in the category of new and interesting things that were opportunities that we're giving the students, I wanted to talk about Beacon High School students' trip to Albany last week to the state capitol. There were about 20 students. They were from the Mock Trial Club, the Debate Club, and the Student Council, including some of our very own student board members, who I was so excited to see. I happened to be working up in Albany that day, so I got to spend the day with them. And I just wanted to say, they were so thoughtful. They came in they met with Senator Rollison, they met with the Assembly member, Jonathan Jacobson. They had such thoughtful questions about the budget, about how it connects to the federal budget, about what it's like to write legislation. They were super engaged. We all went to the Assembly chambers. They sat in for part of a debate on a really high-profile bill. They were dodging all the advocates and protesters that were all over the Capitol. It was a very exciting day for them to be there. We did a tour. I got them lost about 6 times because I still don't know my way around, but they were incredibly patient. And we all took a picture in the chambers, and I kept saying, "I'm so proud of you guys," and they were looking at me like, "Lady, we just met you." But I wanted them to know that the way that they were super engaged, even during the tour, during the Q&A, the way that that the school had sort of come together to get them there, and the fact that we want to make this a regular thing. I just want to shout out the students and also shout out the teachers, Erin Hadeland, who put the whole thing together, and then Matthew Steltz and Tim Newman, who were also there chaperoning and doing a fabulous job of keeping everybody sort of going, and to the Foundation for Beacon Schools for sponsoring the trip. To me, this was a perfect encapsulation of the potential for bringing these new opportunities, seeing the kids connect what they're learning in class to the real world, and saying, "Oh, this really makes a difference in the real world, in life." And it was just so inspiring, and I was completely nerding out, and so grateful for that. And that's it for me.
Can I ask Matt, one question? There's a great video that Mike Gersh put together for our budget season of seniors talking about what matters to them. Where will people be able to see it? Because it's really wonderful.
Yeah, we created a 5-minute video. I think there's maybe 8 seniors featured in it, and I think I don't know when we're launching it. Soon.
Will it be on the website or just social media or?
Both probably. I think for social media, we might have to chop it into, minute to 2-minute segments. But it's seniors talking about the future, but reflecting on their experience here, and it's really well done. They gave really thoughtful answers. So, we were trying to think of different ways. To just kind of share out, when I say we had a meeting with the principals a few weeks ago. And so one of the things the principals asked for was a kind of an information sheet that talks about how the budget impacts their school. And then the other thing we talked about was having some of our seniors just talk about their experiences here. Anyway, yeah, I will also figure out tomorrow how to share it with the whole board so you all can see it, because I know you're just let us see it. And then we'll start sharing it widely. But it's once you see it, you're we need to do this every year. It's really cool. So yeah, no, it's been and I just thanks for the budget stuff. And Alina, you mentioned something. I don't see it as like us trying to be a little bit, trying to be more detailed or whatever, because I don't see it as a result of like a tax cap being at 5 or a tax levy rate. I think we've just been, honestly, the board, I want to go back to like the board retreats over the last 2 years that have focused on financial planning. We've been looking at what some other districts do regarding communication. I think my goal with this is like trying to figure out ways to keep it fresh every year we do it. But I appreciate that, and thanks, to Anne Marie and our principals and Heather and Saggy for putting all their thinking into it too. So thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you, guys. So moving on to Board of Ed business. 9.01, we need to vote on one candidate for the BOCES board runoff election. There was a tie between Bryce Holland and Mark Fleschauer. So Bryce is from Poughkeepsie City. Mark Fleschauer represents Rhinebeck. We can only vote for one candidate. So so if you have somebody in mind, you can only vote once. What I'm just going to do is I'll say who wants to vote for Bryce Holland, and you can say yes or no, or we can raise our hands. I guess that would make more sense, just so we can see visually. And then we'll know whoever gets the majority vote will get the district's vote. Okay. So who would like to vote for Bryce Holland for 2025 BOCES board? That's unanimous. Done. Bryce Holland. Thanks. Thank you for making that so easy. 9.02.
Flora, you were excited to get that done quickly.
I'm trying to beat my record from last
No,
time. So then 9.02 is a roll call vote for the superseding bond resolution. Matt, do you want to say something about this?
I'll let Anne Marie talk about it.
Yeah.
This bond resolution allows us to borrow a note to pay for them, and these are buses that were on the ballot in May of last year.
Right.
So it's not new money. It is new money to pay for the buses, but the buses didn't come in until now. So now is the time we're going to.
Right. So it's not a new resolution. Okay. So Vicky will. Oh, right. Can I get a motion for a roll call vote for the superseding bond resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second by Summer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Oh, you don't have to do roll call.
Oh, right. I don't know. Okay.
Nope.
No. Okay. As long as it's still legally acceptable, then that's great. Okay. Consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Are there any items that any board members would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none. Can I have a motion to approve 11.01 through 15.06?
So moved.
Lena, second?
Second.
Second.
Second. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting and go into executive session? The board does not plan to return.
So move.
Lena, second?
Moved.
Summer.
Second.
Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Good night.